VHS Hi-Fi Part 1, VHS Hi-Fi. Now, if you've been watching some of the channels around, you know that the VHS Hi-Fi is good. Everybody tells you it's good, but not everybody tells you, A, how good, oh, it sounds good, B, why it sounds good, and C, how to get it yourself, how to make it work for you. Because when it's down to you, you might find actually they're a little bit lacking in information. So this is going to be a two-way street. You can put comments and questions. If you get any value of it, you could even subscribe. What the hell. But this is going to be a way of getting you onto VHS Hi-Fi if you want to, and if you think it's worth it. But I'll show you the figures. I'll show you how to get around some of the problems, and I'll explain what some of the problems are, because there are problems with VHS Hi-Fi which, well, they're only a problem if you trip up with them. But if you know they're there, you can work around them. What is it? Right. VHS is a normal cassette-based video recording system. What does that mean? It means you put a big cassette, huge, great big cassette, half-inch tape, into a machine, and it goes whoa, and pictures come out. Well, if you've recorded them, that is. Anyway, why is that good? Because it's got pictures and things. Why is it bad? Because it's old standard and it's not used anymore. Okay, so why are we bothering with it? The sound recorded on the later, but this is only the later versions of VHS, had hi-fi sound. By hi-fi, what do we mean? 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, plus or minus, not a lot. Up to 90 dB signal noise ratio, well, that's what they said. Is it true? Well, let's find out. One of the first things you have to be aware of with hi-fi VHS is TV standards. If you go into the TV standards of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and even now to a certain extent with DVB and stuff, there is PAL, there is CCAM, there is MESICAM, that's Middle Eastern CCAM, there is NTSC, there is various, there's sort of a mixture between NTSC and PAL, which is used in South America. Those things cause problems with video recorders. So you have to make sure your video recorder, the one that you've got, actually works with the TV system that is, or with the system that you're going to be using. And that's where there is a bit of a problem, and you can fall over that. The next thing you have to worry about is tapes. But we'll get onto those. If you are going to use VHS Hi-Fi, you've got to worry about the tapes. But there's a lot of, well, people always get themselves confused with this sort of thing. If you've got a good quality tape, be it American or European, E or T prefix, it doesn't matter, then it will work properly in your VHS video recorder. But, and this is where the big but comes, you've got to make sure that you don't use cheap, and there were some really awful cheap tapes. If you're going to use them for audio, you need to have proper tapes. JVC, TDK, Maxell, that sort of thing. You don't have to go for expensive ones, they just have to be proper ones, because, quite simply, if you put a cheap tape in, you're going to get cheap results, and cheap results you don't want, because you're spending the time and effort on this, and you want it to work well. Okay, so we've got our tapes. Next thing you have to worry about is, who are you recording it for? If it's for yourself, it doesn't matter. If you've got your machine and you've only got one of them, and that's fine. If you've got more than one machine, you have to make sure that you've got the same sort of machine all the time. I.e., if you're in a PAL territory, maybe it's a good idea to have a PAL machine. But there's an even more specific reason for that I'll get to in a minute. If you're in NTSC territory, have an NTSC machine. If you're going to send tapes to people, make sure that you know what their standard is, because if you send a PAL tape to an NTSC machine owner, he can't use it. He can't even get the linear track off. And I'll cover what the difference is between hi-fi track and linear track next. Okay, so what is the sounds on a VHS tape? Originally, they had linear track, which was just a soundtrack which was recorded on the tape like a normal cassette recorder records on a tape. It's just a head, looks like a normal head. The tape passes by it and it puts the sound on in exactly the same way as a reel-to-reel or a cassette deck or anything like that. It's just straight linear. Now, this is my VHS, and you can see here I'll point out some of the bits and pieces for you. The black line shows you where the cassette would be sitting, and this brown line here is where the tape would be with it in the rest position. Now we're looking at here, we've got these orange bits. These are the guides that come forward when you push play, and the tape, which is the blue line there, goes past the erase head, round the drum, round the second guide, past the other heads, and through past the capstan. Now, I said to you there was an erase head. On the left hand side, that's the erase head, that makes sure the tape is clear. And on the right hand side, you've got pinch roller, and there you've got the control track and audio track heads. Now, on the drum there, you can see where I've marked with the two brown things, there's two different types of heads on that drum, and that's because there's audio heads and there are video heads. Then, after a while, they decided they're going to go for stereo. Well, that was good, so they put a stereo head in and they recorded it just like a normal cassette deck. Okay, so that was okay, we had stereo sound, but a little bit hissier, so they started putting the switch for Dolby on some of the domestic machines. But, you know, it wasn't part of the standard, it was just if you were lucky enough to have one. And you had to turn it off when you played the normal tape anyway, because, you know, pain in the bum. So there we go. We've now got linear tape. So we've got linear tape, we've got sound going on it. But people realised that, you know, it would be nice. Feature films have big sound. I mean, 2001: A Space Odyssey, full orchestras. You don't want to have scratchy sound on you when you're playing back. So they invented VHS hi-fi, which is great. And all you need to know is that it is put on with the picture. On a normal VHS sound, the linear track, it's put on as a separate thing onto the tape, opposite to the control track. The control track is there to make everything happen at the right time. With the VHS hi-fi, what they did was they put the sound on with the picture, and in a very similar way to the picture. So they added a couple of extra heads, put them on at a slightly different angle, and made sure that the sound heads only picked up the sound, and the video heads only picked up the video. And they spun the drum round, which you've all seen, and hey presto, you got hi-fi sound. Now, that's great. Absolutely wonderful. But then they started changing the machines, and features. Originally they had really good audio features on these machines. They were wonderful. They would record everything. You had switches to switch to audio. You had the ability to have left and right hi-fi, left and right linear track, etc. You could do insert editing, you could do all sorts of things which you can't do on the later machines because they started knocking the features off. And that's where we get some problems with the hi-fi sound, because if you've got an early machine, you've got yourself an audio deck which takes pictures as well. If you've got a later machine, you've got a pictures machine which will do very good hi-fi audio. Here's a good example of a later SVHS, and you can see there, looks very nice. And under the flap there's, well, where's all the controls gone? But you have to be able to know how to deal with it. And that's where we'll go with this. So, as I said to you, if you've got one of the early machines which has got VU meters and things like that, you've probably got a switch which is marked audio. So you switch it to audio, and then you can record in your hi-fi, and it's great. And it will produce, what that does is it will produce probably a black or possibly a grey blank picture, a picture of nothing, which it will then record the sound over. And when you play it back, it's just, you just hear the sound, which is great. And you've probably almost certainly got lots of sockets in the back of the machine. You've got a SCART socket, because it's a European one, or American, you wouldn't have that. But if you've got a SCART socket, you'll also have possibly RCAs in and out, as well as the SCARTs. And it makes it a very useful thing. And it'll also have video in and out. And if you've got a Super VHS, it'll have Super video in and out. I mean, it's really a very good thing to have. But then you move on, and they started taking some of these features off. If you've got a machine without VU meters and things, it may still record just by putting audio in, but it may not. And what do you do if that's the case? Well, I'll show you that a little bit later on. And what we'll do first now, though, is we'll have a look at what the sound can be and what the sound is on VHS hi-fi. You won't have seen anything like this before. We'll do our normal thing and start with the buff ting. Well, as you can see and hear, that was a good buff ting. So I don't want to play the actual audio now, so what we'll do is we'll have a look and see if there's anything to be excited about, and then we'll do the audio later on, and we'll see if there's anything else we can do with it. Anyway, let's get stuck in, shall we? These are the charts to be looking for. This is the 0 dB white noise, and well, I think we should just go home now and just say, you know, it's there. Seriously, that's an impressive white noise. On to the minus 20 dB white noise, which looks identical. It is absolutely magnificent there as a white noise. Just to remind you, this is what a Type 1 cassette, a very good one, looked like on the 0 dB. Here's the pink noise, and you can see there's a 0 dB and there's a minus 20, and they're exactly the same shape. Let's see how noisy it is. Well, it isn't. It's minus 90 dB and there's nothing much there at all. Well, I thought I'd better pop up and remind you that this VHS hi-fi is an analog recording system. It's not digital. This is analog. So let's have a look at the next lot. 1 kilohertz 0 dB and 1 kilohertz minus 20. You can see there is a little bit of spiking there, but it's all so low it doesn't really matter. It's quieter. The spikes are lower than the signal noise ratio on an old cassette deck. So wow. With the sweep at minus 20, you're used to seeing it quite good, but look at that. It's as straight as you could get. Okay, so now you're expecting me to bring up the 0 dB ones and see it's all been mangled like it normally is. Well, let's have a look. Not a mangle inside. Look at that. It's perfectly flat, just like the minus 20. And finally, just so we got the whole thing covered, let's have a look at the wow and flutter. Yeah, surely it's only VHS. That can't be very good. Let's have a look. This is playing back its own signal, so look at that, 0.003% peak and 0.0016 on the RMS. Now at this point, all those purists will be saying, you can't record your own signal to play back and do your wow and flutter testing because it's going to give you a bigger reading than you've really got. Well, I don't care really, because 0.003 is pretty damn low. 0.0016 is very low, and at the worst it's going to be is double what it should be. So, you know, let's go with it. All good so far, but now let's look at the problems and how to get around them. And this is the first one. This was a recording that I did, and you can see that it looks okay, and we'll have a listen to it in a second. That doesn't sound too good, so let's go for a little bit further down the track. Where we want to go, like Patrick Cost, dynamic and clean. Well, what was that? It was awful, as you could hear. Believe me, I'm saving you by not playing any more of that. However, I know what the problem was, and I'll tell you what it was, and we'll show you how it should be done. This is the properly done one, and as you can see here, it looks a lot better. I mean, the other one looked, if you didn't know what you were looking at, it looked okay, but this one is what it should have looked like. If you've seen my previous videos on tape tests and things, you'll see that this is more like the digital version. So let's have a listen to this one. I think it's about to start now. You can compare this to my normal stuff because that's the Behringer, and I'm feeding the computer in exactly the same way, or from the computer in exactly the same way, and it's going to the VHS in hi-fi mode there, and you can see it's a bit grubby, but then you'll see in a second I have wiped this over and it will not come clean, and it's not of any particular use for making of videos to spend time cleaning it, but it is clean on the inside. That's the most important thing. The video there, you can see that is the actual signal from the digital being fed to the video recorder, and that's what it should look like, and as you could see, it did look like that on the playback. And yeah, that's how that worked. But this is the problem. This one, to get around the problem of that, all that noise and stuff, I had to do a little modification to the normal setup. And what you're about to see now is what I did. I had to feed video into the recorder as well as audio. So I used a DVD. Nice, simple Disney DVD. And it included Macrovision. Now the interesting thing is you can see here what it's done to the picture, but it did not affect its ability to record the sound, because what it needed was the sync pulses, not the colour and the luminance. So that's the way it worked. And that's the cure. This is what I did. I literally got my source fed into the VHS, and then I did the video source, which was just a DVD player, and that was fed in as well. And the end result was what you heard. And finally, if you've got yourself one of these ones which have only got the pictures ability, you have to sort out yourself some method of altering the signal going in and out. If you look at this video that I've done, you can see that the actual signals don't have AGC on them, because they're all going in at line level. It expects it to be that level. But it does mean that if you want to be able to alter the levels, you're going to have to put some sort of variable preamp in front of it. So that's it. If you've got any other suggestions, maybe you'd like to put them in the comments. And if you've got anything from this video, maybe you'd like to subscribe. And there'll be another interesting video coming up on there. Thank you very much. Catch you another time. Bye.